Hello and welcome to another episode of Control Alt Access. It's a video game accessibility video and audio podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Laura, and I'm here as ever with my lovely co-host, Arevia. How are you doing today?
Hello, Laura. I am tired. I'm just home from travel, but how are you? How are you holding up in this winter?
I'm tired without having travelled just because the winter does this to me. It
Yeah,
saps all the energy out of me.
yeah, it is.
It all of my chronic pain joints start acting up. They're like my knee is always the first to go where it's like, can you feel the winter's coming? I'm like, yeah. Are you just gonna ache for the next 4 months? Probably.
Oh
Ooh.
yes, we're feeling our age.
Yeah, it started to happen in more parts of my body this year. Like it used to just be I had a motorcycle accident when I was 16, and since then one of my knees has felt the weather change coming. And this year it's like, oh no, I'm starting to feel it in more places.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep.
Well, we've not got a huge amount of stuff in terms of like new games we've played this week, so we're gonna do something a little different with today's episode,
Yes.
and talk about some end of the yeary bits because A, nominations for the GA Conf Awards came out this week, and we
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit. Also, we're getting near the end of the year, and it's a good time to go, what did we actually like this year that was worth remembering?
What would we do? What has actually happened? That's the thing. Every single like end of the year, I go, I have not done anything, and then I sit down and just like, oh, I actually done more than what I thought.
Yeah, when I start looking at like what video games did I really enjoy this year, and then I look at it and it's a list of like probably close to two a month. I'm like, that's just the stuff that I want to shortlist as like I really enjoyed this year.
Yep.
I played a reasonable amount of stuff, and I never feel like I did at the end of the year.
Nope. And every year it just feels I should have done more. Where is the time? Oh my god.
Exactly. So should we start by talking about the nominees for the GA Conf Awards this year?
Yay! Yeah, let's start with that.
Um, so if you're watching or listening to this the day it goes up, which should be on Thursday, the 27th, I think, of November, there will still be a couple of days available to vote on these awards. I believe the voting is up until the 30th of November, which is this
Yep.
upcoming weekend. So if you want to vote on any of these awards, you're able to do so. Should we go through each of the categories in order and just quickly go through the things that are nominated?
Yeah, let's do that.
So the
Starting on
big AAA ones. Do you want to start with that?
yeah, the big AAA one is AAA Excellently. I've been in UK all weekend. I should be able to talk English now, but no, alas, never happens. Excellence, accessibility in game made by big budget and by a big team.
Hmm.
And we have some brilliant contestants. I don't think I'm going to go through why all of them are nominated. You can go in, click in,
Yeah.
take a look.
The awards website is really good at giving you like good bullet pointed information on like this is why these things were nominated.
Yes.
Hmm.
And the nominations are Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Doom, The Dark Ages, FC 26, FI 25. Yeah, and FI 25. And
Yeah.
out of these, I want to like, at least like, there are two I want to like really
Hmm.
like quickly talk about.
Yeah.
The first one is FC 26. It's a game
Yeah.
I have not played. It previously also known as FIFA games. I
Yeah.
have not played it, but I wanted to highlight it because I think it is the first competitive game with PvP where we have accessibility options so readily available for us.
Yeah, it's definitely the first one that I would say um didn't hold back on
Yes.
accessibility in online multiplayer because you can point at examples like oh, I keep forgetting the name of it. The PlayStation first party hero shooter that lasted like 2 weeks last year. Um
Concord.
Concord, where you're like, yeah, that did support high contrast mode, but it was high contrast outlines as opposed to like a full solid high contrast mode, for example. There were some limitations to it, but like this is full on high contrast mode
Yeah.
as you typically think of it, play usable in online matchmaking, which is so rare. Like Call of Duty has high contrast mode, but you can only use it in the single player campaign. You can't use it in online multiplayer, for example. You're right, it is so nice to see like that kind of support allowed to be used online.
Yeah, and let me correct myself a bit because I said it was the first game that allows accessibility, which is not, because like we
Yeah.
have accessibility in Fortnite, but it's the first game that allows high contrast mode,
Yeah.
which is, if somebody listening do not know what high contrast mode is, it is when you give your team or your character one color, the opposite team a not different color, or enemy a different color, and then things you can pick up a lost color, and then you gray out the background, or at least in some parts you can either gray it out or reduce the color, and it helps people with limited eyesight or who are blind to be able to still see what is happening on the screen without a bunch of distraction.
Yep. Also really useful for people with cognitive accessibility stuff in many cases.
Yep.
And what was the other one you wanted to shout out?
I think actually I wanted to shout out Doom, which is sort of a bit unfair because I did do the promotion for them, like technically on like Twitch, like I played the game, or But
we'll say this up front. I think that we're gonna keep coming across things in this list and going like, I had something vaguely to do with it. It's hard to be in the accessibility space and not have had something to do with some of these games.
Yes, it is. And also, I actually have to say, so I am one of the judges for the competition, but I'm not allowed to vote on anything I have had any fingers in. Just FYI.
Same situation here. Yeah,
that is typical. But it's such a small industry still that is just what happens. But we have to like deliver our like votes with names, so we cannot do anything.
Like, fun fact, there's a huge number of things on this year's list that I did uncredited work as a mock reviewer on this year, for example. It's like, there is a huge number of things on this list that I can think are deserving of winning the award, but I can't vote on.
Yeah. It is the same thing there.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because they're an incredible way of dealing with motion sickness. This is the first quick first-player shooter I've ever been able to play, where we are in first-person mode, and I do not get motion sick. And it is due to quite simple things, but many of them combined together makes it a really, really good game. And for that, it is things like you can turn down the time in the game. So when I reduced the game from 100% down to 75, it still looked good. It still didn't look like you were in any kind of slow motion.
Yeah.
But it was enough for my brain to understand and not like over stress, which can make me motion sick. And also the fact that you can take off weapon bobbing, which for me was just like, this is incredible. This is insane. Because I have never thought about it before, but having something in front of me going up and down slowly, it just makes me motion sick.
It's one of my biggest motion sickness triggers.
Yeah. So just for that, I really, really want to shout out that it is incredible. But of course, all of these nominees deserve to be there. But those are the two one I really remember.
The one I want to shout out this year for one specific reason is Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is because I so appreciate their implementation of what they call it is emotion subtitles. Yep. Just putting a single one-word description at the beginning of lines of dialogue in the subtitles to say the non-verbal subtext of how that line was being delivered. So useful. It's not the only game that tried that this year. Atomfall's going to come up in some other categories, and that did some stuff around that this year on your dialogue choices. But I really like how Assassin's Creed Shadows implemented that, and I would love to see that get some love, because I've been pushing for this to be a feature that more games try and do for the 5 years. Nearly 6 years I've been making accessibility content online, and I was so excited to see that in a big budget game this year.
Absolutely.
So the next category is AA excellence for games made on a medium budget or by a medium-sized team. The nominees are Abiotic Factor, Atomfall, The Rogue Prince of Persia, South of Midnight, and Power Wash Simulator 2.
Yes.
Do you have any in here that you want to give a particular shout out to?
I think I want to I think it's cool to see that Prince of Persia in general as a title keeps on being like a title we can just assume will be accessible at this point. I think that is really cool. I think that they have big shoes to fill. So I think that was cool to see they continue some things. and also yeah, I think that was like for this one. This one, I think for me it was a bit of a struggle because I hadn't properly played the game. The only game I had was Out of Midnight, but I got so motion sick in that game that
Yeah.
even though I can see and understand why it is in this category because it deserves it, that also sometimes can overshadow a bit.
I can talk about two of the entries this year that I want to give a quick nod to. Abiotic Factor is it's one of those games that's the gameplay loop is collect a bunch of resources, craft new things so that you can go further out, get new resources, build new gear, go further out, that kind of thing. It has so much granular support for like tweaking the experience to the point that it's going to barely resemble the intended developer experience, and that they're willing to just go, even in like online worlds where you're playing with other people, just go, yeah, if that mechanic's not working for you, just turn it off. Do you struggle with like the mechanic where if you die, you drop all your resources and you have to go back and get them or risk losing them? Just turn that mechanic off. You don't drop your items when you die now. Um, that granular level of customizability is fantastic. I also want to shout out Atomfall. It did some great stuff, but the one that I really like is allowing you to get your text size up to 52 point.
Yes, that was that one, yeah.
Yeah, which is big enough that we've said before that like if you're unsure how big to make your biggest text size, go as big as seems reasonable and then a few sizes up above that.
Yeah.
The people who need it to be bigger will appreciate it and will probably not mind even if it like doesn't look good at that size just because they need it bigger to see it.
Yeah.
Atomfall really was like, look, it might look terrible, but the game's not designed to account for it, but if you need it to be bigger, sure, you can make it bigger,
Here
even
you
if it
go.
looks a little wonky. And I really like that approach of just being like, we're willing to let you break our aesthetic if it means you get to actually read the text.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, do you want to do the next category?
Yeah, here's where I pick up a bit more because this is indie excellent and I love myself some indie games. And accessibility in games made by a small budget or by a small team is Art of Fauna, Trash Goblin, Squeaky Cross, Peak, and an unplayable game. And of these, as somebody who is just absolutely love indie games, I also love like Fern Slop as it's been called now. I actually there it is like peak for me because their commitment to continuing updating has been quite impressive this year. I am so impressed by seeing like even small Steam comments, like really, really, really small Steam comments going like, hey, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And then they do it. Like,
Mm.
it is a game where it's about to have fun. Like, it's just, here we have some friends, let's just have fun together. But that understand that also can be a problem if you cannot have fun due to barriers. So they just go, oh, this stops you from having fun here. We take it away. We don't care. And it is that like kind of understanding of what a game is again that has just been I've been so glad to see.
Indeed. The two I want to quickly give a nod to are Squeakcross. I'll give the caveat up front on this. This is the first game that my wife did accessibility consulting on. She's listed in the credits, so obviously I have some bias here. But this is a pictogram game where you use numbers to like make a picture, sort of like Picross. And so rarely do I see dyscalculia, the numbers equivalent of dyslexia, considered in accessibility conversations. And Squeakcross has so many really interesting design choices and features designed to make it more accessible to players who struggle with keeping lots of numbers in their head.
Yep.
All of which are basically all turned on by default, so that like you don't if you don't need them, you can go turn them off. But if you do need them, you don't feel like you failed in any way by having to go and turn them on. I really like that. Just because it's such an underserved area of accessibility, I'm really glad to see Squeakcross getting nominations this year.
Yep.
Also, an unplayable game. I think for such a short experience, it does a really good job of communicating mobility, accessibility, and platforming games to non-disabled audiences in a way that I think is like very standout, and I think will get talked about in accessibility conversations for a long time.
Yep.
So yeah, the next category is Best Deaf and Hard of Hearing Accessibility. The nominees this year are Assassin's Creed Shadows, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Ghost of Yotei, Doom the Dark Ages, and Abiotic Factor. I don't know that I have anything huge to add on these ones this year.
No, not me either. But what I actually realized a bit is that in this going around, and I think I might have to get a bit better on my knowledge about deaf and hard hearing accessibility. As I was reading through these, and I sat down and watched some YouTube videos and like learned a bit more, and I found myself like, I understand it, but I think I have some holes in the bigger knowledge of what accessibility is. And also deaf and hard of hearing, the same as the blind community, has along like a culture. So I think I also realized that I want my 2026 to be where I learn a bit more about this. And I think the reason why I wanted to say it, even though like, oh, you should know everything. And the thing is that is impossible. We do not know everything. Accessibility is an ongoing process. You should always, and you will always need to learn new things, because accessibility is about humans, and humans evolves, so your knowledge needs to evolve. And even though like I know the basics, and I know most likely more than most people about this, I was just like, hey, here it is, something I haven't thought about. I need to do more research.
The moment you think you know everything about accessibility, including about categories that don't personally impact you, the moment you've lost that battle to, it is really important to acknowledge that no matter how much you think you know, there's going to be a whole bunch that is still to learn. And that's what I find exciting about this space. I know for me, there was an example maybe a year and a half ago that really clicked in my head and made me realize, like, fundamentally there are things I will never understand about deaf player accessibility that like really opened my eyes and made me have that same thought of like, I need to make more of an effort to understand the things that aren't going to be immediately obvious to me. For me, that moment was a comment made by Cameron Akit from PlayStation at Develop at Develop last year, talking about the idea of if your game can't have, say, British or American Sign Language support, having an option for subtitles, potentially where the English language words are formatted in BSL sentence structure, so that it's one less aspect of it that is having to be mentally translated, is a thought that I was like, yeah, that makes total sense, and I had never considered it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that made me go, I need to have more conversations with people about their own experiences to, find those kind of spots that I would never spot myself,
Yeah, and also last week I had a workshop, my second workshop ever, and that is always fun because I talk to a lot of developers, and this time it was quite a big workshop with 30 people, so that it shortened a bit down what experience we can share with each other, but we got some good conversations going. And one thing I did not realize, or maybe I haven't thought about, but that is how many people actually play their games without a headset or without sound due to their family situation. So in where they have children, young children, and they can't have high sounds on while their child is sleeping, because they have to have one ear always on the child. And the thing is that that was like, it's always different bridges when I do these consultations or workshops where we are going to find something that makes people click to understand what accessibility actually is, and that accessibility also helps them to sort of personalize it. Of course, I hope that people just understand that you should do this, but that isn't the reality always for everyone. Sometimes you need an inner motivation to be more motivated to do things. And just hearing how many people say like, that was the thing that clicked for so many people to understand, oh, I can also have a situational disability. That was quite interesting.
it's a thing I try and think about a lot when I'm doing accessibility coverage of games. Is I try and keep an eye open for moments where I'm like, I feel like I'm relying on audio right now. Okay, just turn the audio off for a minute. Am I still able to? Am I struggling with what this game is trying to communicate? It's it is obviously that's not to one with the experience of deaf players, but there is a lot you can do to just go. Wait a second, turn sound off. Go. Is this game still feeling reasonably playable right now?
Yeah.
See,
Um,
yeah. Do you want
next
to do the next
one.
category?
Yes, best motor slash mobility
Mm.
accessibility. I think I will never see somebody agreeing with themselves what we're going to call. Is it motor accessibility or mobility accessibility? No, none of us know. And the nominees are Assassin's Creed Shadows, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown Mobile, Doom: The Dark Ages, Trash Goblin, Battlefield 6. Here I think again I want to shout out Prince of Persia: The Lost
Yeah,
Crown for taking everything from a computer onto a mobile. Mobile is something I have been more fascinated about lately, not being able to be that much on my PC due to my health and due to having to travel for work,
mm.
and having to see most mobile games you play today, they cut out a lot of settings. They go
Yeah,
like, nope, this is a mobile version, so you don't need all of these fancy things. And then you have Prince of Persia who went, yes, you do, and we're going to give you everything you have in the original into
yeah.
your phone.
Um, yeah. There's other ones in here that I think are great. Like obviously we talked Doom: The Dark Ages
Yeah.
and Assassin's Creed Shadows already. And if I don't bring up a game again in a later category, it's not because I don't think it's good at that category. Like I
So
think largely, if we've talked about a game in one category, we might skim over it a little in later categories. I do want to give a little nod to Trash Goblin, which,
yep,
again, I got to give a caveat. This is a game that's appeared multiple years in the Accessibility Summer Showcase. Um, but I really appreciate what this developer has been doing throughout the early access period up to their 1.0 launch in terms of taking on board a lot of feedback around
yes,
different motor accessibility barriers that existed and really tweaking and re-refining their playability over the course of about a year or so. And I think that game's ended up in a really good place in that regard that I want
yeah.
to, give a little shout.
They are
Um,
also one of the developers who is really easy to contact, or in the way of like
yes.
when you ask questions on their TikTok, there is a big probability that they will answer you if they see
Yeah.
it. So I really enjoy that.
Then we go to Best Blind and Low Vision Accessibility, and our nominees are Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, F1 2025, FC26, Atomfall, and the Hades 2 Blind Accessibility mod, which is one that I want to note because this is one was not initially on my radar and it just come onto my radar during awards season. It implements a bunch of features around screen reader compatibility, menus that allow you to sort of just teleport to key locations so that like you're not struggling to locate where a particular NPC is, adaptation for things like minigame timing that could be hard to see, um, just to make getting around and engaging with mechanics more accessible. Um, Obviously it's not going to be enough for some players to be able to play this game, but it does increase the number of people who can engage with this game, and that's super cool for a bit of community mod support.
Yep. Under the best cognitive accessibility, we have
Hmm.
just a bunch of game we already talked about.
Yeah, yeah,
We have Squeak Cross, we have Atomfall, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Rogue Prince of Persia, and Doom: The Dark Ages.
yeah. Once again, I'm so happy that Squeakcross is in here, and I do really appreciate the Assassin's Creed Shadows tone tag stuff showing up in this category specifically, just because
Yes.
I was a little nervous that this year it was only going to show up in deaf and hard of hearing support categories, and I'm
Yep.
really glad people are acknowledging that the emotion subtitle stuff is also really useful for cognitive accessibility. That makes me
Yeah,
very happy.
and that we see also with Doom: The Dark Ages, where it also pops up here for their comprehensive motion sickness settings. And again, it is like this, where it is rarely one accessibility thing or setting only helps one specific set of people that experience
Mm.
barriers. A lot of times, small things can actually change it for a lot of the typical five barriers or categories we have of game accessibility. So that's cool to see.
Yeah. And then we've got best mental health accessibility. Abiotic factor, we've talked about. I don't think we've talked about this bit of it before. They have a bunch of misophonia settings for if sounds trigger anger in people. That's really cool. They've got options for breathing, humming, repetitive sounds, stuff like eating and drinking. Um, I've seen misophonia once or twice acknowledged as like one blanket toggle, but like detailed granular misophonia support, very cool.
Mhm.
Atomfall, we recently talked about the sheer number of phobia toggles that
Yep.
has. That's very cool. Art of Fauna, which I don't know a huge amount about. This is one that's turned up a couple of times in these awards, and I need to check out this week. That has a bunch of phobia toggles as well, which is very cool. Lost Records Bloom and Rage has a bunch of content warnings and the ability to go find more detailed spoilery content warnings from a QR code, which is very cool. And Date Everything has content warnings built into the narrative.
Yes. And also be the possibility to just skip characters without any penalty, which I think is important because
Yes.
dating is so tied into emotions. You're supposed to
Yeah.
be emotional when you do this, but not everybody will want to or can handle specific emotions that a game like this can present, and that is okay. And the game says,
Yeah.
"Good on you. Here you go."
Exactly. Do you want to do the next one?
Yes, we have best representation of disabled characters and experience. We have Stumble Guys,
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch, Just Dance 2026, The Altars, and Wildwood Down. I forgot what I was going to say. Well, that just flew out of my ear. I hope somebody catched it or saw it. Uh, Just Dance, there we go, is back, and it's
Yeah.
nice to see. They keep on doing the really, really cool things where they keep having people in with disabilities to choreograph their dances. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. The one this year that I really want to point at is Wildwood Down is super interesting. It has a protagonist main character who has Down syndrome, who was developed in consultation with and is voiced by a person with Down syndrome, and that is so rarely a thing you see in video games. In terms of like representation of disabled characters, for the last several years we've been seeing improvement, but it's been largely in physical
Yeah.
disabilities. In things like character creators allowing you to have like a prosthetic arm or a prosthetic leg, wheelchair users, for example. It's really nice to see cognitive and developmental disabilities not only represented but authentically represented and in like a main character role. And that feels like a really big step forward.
Yes. I think in general, the whole disability community, like outside of video games, also have a big problem where we separate like people with intellectual disabilities and people
Yeah.
who do not have them, or people who
Yes.
have cognitive problems and people who do not have them. Us, like the whole us as in the whole
Yeah, yeah.
community seems to
Hmm.
struggle. As soon as we start talking about things affect the brain, people still get scared in the same ways we have seen with other disabilities
Yeah.
going back 10, 15, 20 years. And these representations are so important. We
Hmm.
need to start having these conversations, even though they are tough and hard.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. Games are such amazing barrier breakers. We have seen they have done it before and they can do it again, and this is tough to see.
Yeah. And then best journalism, which I'm gonna put my
Yay!
hand up. I'm nominated in this one.
Yes!
um. So yeah, the articles about games accessibility that are nominated this year include "How a Small Team is Helping to Move Accessibility Forward, One Thumbstick at a Time" by Vivek Gohil. Former employees, community members allege Able Gamers founder fostered abuse behind closed doors by Grant Stoner. Democratizing Horror: How Megacat Studios Brought Accessibility to Five Nights at Freddy's by Madison Petrick. Diablo 4 Second Anniversary, interview with Drew McCrory by Antonio Martinez. And Don't Call Your Video Game Accessible for Everyone. I wrote that one.
Yes.
Um, obviously, I'm very proud of the one that I wrote, but
Yeah,
I wanna nudge at some of the others. We talked at length, obviously, about the Able Gamers story that
yeah,
came out earlier this year.
yeah.
Once again, Grant Stoner has done some fantastically in-depth and emotionally very difficult investigative journalism. It is hard to fault the work he does in this space and the emotional toll he puts on himself to get that work done.
Yeah.
Congrats. But I do wanna look. I think all of the nominees in this category are fantastic. If I'm gonna shout out one of them, I want to shout out Vivek Gohil's piece about accessibility through improvements in thumbstick design. It's a really good read, and I like if I was going to point at one of these pieces to go, I think more people should read it. I'd love for more people to read Vivek's piece. So
Oh,
yeah. Um, from there, we've got best academic research, a section that I don't think either of us is going to have a huge amount of input on, if I'm honest.
no. And since I am tired and I am so dyslexic, would you do me the honor to read
Yeah,
everyone?
I'll read the titles off, and I'll say this: I have all of these. I've put all of these in tabs to go. I'm gonna try and make an effort to read these brackets, the ones that I can read, because some of these are academically paywalled in ways I cannot access.
Yeah.
I these are definitely on my radar as things I want to learn from, but right now I have neither the time nor in some cases the access to be able to yet.
Yeah.
But the nominees are how users who are blind or low vision play mobile games, perceptions, challenges, and strategies by Ziher Rand et al. Punch Pulse, a physically demanding virtual reality boxing game designed with, for, and by blind and low vision players by Sanchita S. Kamath et al. Designing and evaluating a VR boxing game experience with blind people by Diogo Furtado et al. Inclusive avatar guidelines for people with disabilities, supporting disability representation in social virtual reality by Kexin Zhang et al. And VR captions, design captions for DHH users in multiplayer communication in VR by Tianz Ji et al. And the thing I will note here is I do think it's really interesting that a good percentage of this year's academic research of note is specifically on VR accessibility, and more specifically, in many cases, blind player VR accessibility, which
Yep.
is a really steep hurdle to climb over and a thing I'm really excited to see more academic research on.
Yes.
So, very cool. I'm glad we're getting
Very
those
cool.
developments.
Yeah. And
Do you want to?
also, and
Oh, yeah?
yeah, I was just going to say the same as you said. I think it is nice that we have talked about this before. We talked a bit about it after we went to Conf, but having the weight of the academic field behind us is really cool. I'm glad
Yeah.
that this is a way to honor those and like understand that this is important. Especially in Norway, VR is used a lot in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
In the hope that we can help people both to motivate to train more when the rehabilitation we have it when we come to a brain injury, working alongside with a therapist and brain injury, and also for people who have mental health problems. But all of this has come by because science and research and academic have started focusing more about it, so it's just cool to see.
Indeed. Do you want to do the next category?
Yes, best assistive technology, new improved accessibility tech, and there we have the Xbox adaptive joystick, the Steam Deck accessibility update, the PS5 audio focus, Switch 2, and the BioWare Proteus builder. And all of these we have talked about, and I for some reason I just feel like there is like so long since we got the Xbox adaptive joystick, but it was this year, and that just tells me how long this year has been.
Yeah, so we found out about, well, part of the thing for you will be you've had it considerably longer than that. Because
Yes.
we found out about it at Gamescom 2024, I believe.
Yes.
And at that point, you already had your hands on one, which is probably a factor in it feeling older than that for you.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, the Xbox Adaptive Joystick, I absolutely bloody love that piece of tech. It's very useful for me in a lot of ways.
And
I
I cannot get over that it's so cheap. Like I
yeah,
can to this day cannot get over that is one of the cheapest tech out there when we include
yeah,
standard controllers.
exactly. Um, I want to give a little nod to the PS5 audio boost here. Um, This allows you to customize things like the audio balance per ear. If you struggle with hearing like high frequencies or low frequencies, you can sort of balance them for your bad ear can have a louder balance of that sound to sort of make up for it. Thing that I find it really useful for is it basically functions as a system level on PS5 voice boost. If you're someone like me that really struggles to pick out voices in cluttered audioscapes, doing the mid-range, the mid-range audio boost, tends to make dialogue louder than the rest of the mix, and that is so useful for games that don't offer a clear way of doing that.
I also
Um,
think it is nice that we have like Switch 2 here. Nintendo, you are
yeah,
being seen for the work you're doing. And I think like because I we are really quick to tell Nintendo that they're not doing it well, but just FYI Nintendo, when you do well, we also are putting you out there like come on Nintendo, do the right thing, go the right way. And you're starting and I'm so happy about it, but like to see Switch to here, I think it means something.
indeed. The BioWave builder on here is the Proteus builder is like a cheaper one-handed version of the Proteus controller with like the ability to remap some of the controls into more of like a mouse configuration. It's really interesting. It only just got announced and I don't have my hands on it, which is why I'm not saying more about it here. It's it's super interesting and well worth considering, but just too new for me to have an opinion on
Yep.
currently.
Yep.
Um, and then we have Best Accessibility Resource. The nominees this year are Able to Play, the Accessible Games Initiative, Chroma, the upgraded screen reader support in Unity 6.3, and accessibility support being added to Godot.
Yes. Here able to play. I think that is really cool.
Yeah.
I think it is nice to see, and I think it can be a really good resource for people. And I hope this will help them be more seen because you can then, in able to play, you can specialize your personal, like what are your barriers? You can put them in, and
Mm,
then you get a score of games, like how accessible is this game for you. But what is really cool is that you can also do it like this is a barrier which if it does not have this I cannot play the game at all, and then it
yeah.
will always go down to a 0 score because then it
Mm,
won't be accessible for you. And I think that is smart. I think it is a good a good resource, even though like I do review, do do you do reviewing, uh, and that is extremely important sometimes when you're just sitting there and want to figure a new game to play. You don't want to necessarily go through longer reviews because it can be
mm.
hard and to like figure this one specific thing we're looking for, or know the wording you need to looking for, because that is also a hurdle to get over. What wording did the people use? So
Yeah.
having able to play, I think is just a really good resource.
Indeed. I want to shout out two of these very quickly. We've talked a lot about the Accessible Games Initiative.
Yep.
I really like that we are starting to see conceptually things like this happening where the industry, multiple publishers are coming together to try and work on these problems together. That feels like a really positive sign, and I'm really excited to see what that eventually builds into. And Chroma is an open source real time colorblindness simulator that is pretty accurate and that can be used as a real time overlay for, let's say, you're a game developer with a work in progress build. You don't have to do what used to be the method, which was screen record yourself playing, feed the footage into a colorblindness simulator, wait for it to render, watch it back out afterwards. You can just like have a hotkey on your keyboard to toggle on and off let me have a look. How's that looking? To see in pretty good recreation where your potential barriers are. And
Yeah.
that's a really cool tool to exist that is not specific to any one game development engine, so it can be used like pretty across the board.
And I also think this hopefully will make developers understand why we do not like filters and why filters doesn't work, because this is technically just a screen filter to show you, to like mimic how it would be for you to have color blindness. And then you will see that it doesn't just help slapping on color blindness filter on your game. You actually need to do something about your design.
Yep. We're nearly at the end now. We're getting there. This has honestly been a longer discussion than I expected it to be going through the nominees.
We always talk so much.
Look, maybe we save. We had planned to also talk about like our game of the year thoughts, but maybe we save that for next episode.
Yeah,
maybe
I think
this
we
is
should do
the. I mean, this is a good look back at the accessibility stuff of the year, but maybe we talk game of the year stuff next time.
Yes.
So we've got best comms and marketing. The nominees here are the Atomfall accessibility overview trailer,
Yep.
the FC26 accessibility, the reveal trailer having accessibility information in it, the accessible games initiatives reveal on the main stage at GDC, the Switch 2 accessibility information page, and Kirby Air Riders having a segment in the Nintendo Direct talking about accessibility.
Yeah, most of these we have actually talked about before. These are part of our news segment throughout the year, especially Kirby. We talked about it last time. Switch 2, we had a lengthy talk about it. So,
I do love that 2 out of the 5 nominees this year are Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo again. Nintendo, come on!
Right, look, for all of the critique we give Nintendo, and I think it's deserved, this year does, like, I know people are a bit like, temper your expectations. This year does feel like it's been a significant year for accessibility for Nintendo. If for nothing else, then they not only had new accessibility features on Switch 2 when it launched, but they had a dedicated website. Like the day of the big reveal direct for the Switch 2, they already had an accessibility website up with videos of how a lot of their new accessibility features would work. This Nintendo Direct having a dedicated accessibility segment, it's a lot of little firsts, but like, you put that alongside the fact that they're in the Accessible Games Initiative, it does feel like something's really clicked this year, and I want to believe that we've hit a turning point.
No, 100%. I am hopeful still. Cautious, but 100% hopeful, because change has to happen sometimes, and I am willing to give them that change.
Yeah. Then we've got Most Improved for games that have had updates and things over time. Sea of Thieves, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown Mobile, Star Wars Outlaws 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 Switch 2, Roblox text scaling, and the Hades 2 blind accessibility mod.
Yeah.
Do any of these jump out to you?
No, I haven't mentioned the other ones. The ones that do jump out for me, and like the only thing last I can say is like Sea of Thieves. Somebody needs to just like try and pull them off this list, but they never seem to go off this list because they are just like we're in it for the long run, and they come up each year, and it's well deserved because they keep on doing a lot of good work.
I'll quickly nod a couple of things here. Sea of Thieves has been nominated for Most Improved, I'm gonna guess, every year since it released.
Yes.
It is... I can't name a game that has had as lengthy of a life cycle of accessibility support through updates as Sea of Thieves has. It's honestly miraculous. I continue to be impressed.
The whole team is dedicated.
Star Wars Outlaws, the thing I would summarize about this is every time they've done a new version number update or released on a new platform, every one of those updates has had new accessibility added. They have not done an update to that game that didn't add more accessibility. And, like, that's really cool. For any problems I have with Roblox, and believe you me, I have a lot of problems with Roblox, the fact that they updated... For a game that is so much built on user-generated content, that they were able to do an update that enabled text scaling in every single game in Roblox without the game's creator needing to have input across all of the millions of games that Roblox has on it. that's a really good achievement. Like,
Yeah.
being able to bake accessibility backwards into millions of games is a really big deal.
Yes.
Do you want to do the next category?
Yeah, the greatest accessibility innovations, which is the new step forward in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one up is Iris Epilepsy Testing Plugin.
Yeah.
The FC26 configurable high contrast setting in PvP, atomful text scaling, accessible game initiatives, and Assassin's Creed Shadow tone tag emotional subtitles. We have talked about 4 of these already, but I do also
Yeah.
want to give a shout out to Iris because
Yeah.
so of all of things we talk about game accessibility, it is important because we want people to have fun with the games and we want people to still have hobbies no matter their life circumstance. But when it comes to epilepsy, oh, that's a hard word for me. That's a big word for Elmo and an even bigger word for Arabia today. We are now talking about things that can have deadly consequences.
Yeah.
So we had this case many years ago now, luckily, but it still was a case in modern age where they sent out cyberpunk review codes to a journalist who ended up getting triggered by a scene in the start of the game. It got fixed and all of that, but that should not happen. It should not. You should not never sit down and play a game and it's a danger to your life. And having a testing plugin that you can easily run through the scene of your game to just be sure that this is not going to, or at least with big possibility, going to trigger, it is important. It is really important, and I am glad we now have this and that Unreal, and that it is free to use.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that reduces the risk that you're then going to put playtesters with epilepsy through in order to, have a human check your game.
Yes.
The less risk you're putting those consultants at to their health, the better.
Yeah.
And this tool is a great resource for, jumping ahead to that a little bit. Then we have most dedicated publisher, and I think the best way to talk about this category is to read the little bullet pointed list of the things that publisher has done this year. So for Electronic Arts, we have Iris Photosensitivity Unreal plugin, Expanded Patent Pledge, Split Fiction, FC26, F1 2025, Battlefield 6, College Football 26, and Madden 26. Then we have a Ubisoft. They have the Chroma CB simulation tool, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown mobile, The Rogue Prince of Persia, Anno 117 Pax Romana, and their ongoing updates to Star Wars Outlaws. Xbox, we've got the adaptive joystick, the adaptive controller updates, South of Midnight, Avowed, Keeper, The Outer Worlds 2, Ninja Gaiden 4, Gears of War Reloaded, Flight Simulator 2024, and their fast adoption of the Accessible Games Initiative tags.
Yeah.
Bethesda, which I was surprised to see separate from Xbox because they're under Xbox at this point, but they've got Doom the Dark Ages, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Heretics and Hexen Remaster. And PlayStation, the PS5 audio focus settings, Ghost of Yote, Days Gone Remastered, Lost Soul Aside, and MLB The Show 2025.
Yeah.
Undeniably, all of them are doing great.
Yeah, and I don't think there is any more reason to talk even more about these games, but it is cool to see.
I will say what this has highlighted is, for me, for the last few years, the ones I keep going back to is like PlayStation, Xbox, Ubisoft, and EA are like the big consistent people in the AAA accessibility space. It's nice to see Bethesda specifically starting to stand out in that conversation, and I think that's worth keeping an eye on. I don't think in previous years they've been singled out.
And I also think it is cool to see and I think it is important because yes, Xbox, you have Xbox, but Bethesda themselves was really proud of the accessibility they did with Doom. Bethesda themselves were really on, we both promote this, we talk about this, we show this, we this is a part of our game that we want to put out there because we want you to play our games. So it's cool to see they also being shouted out.
Mm-hmm.
The next one we have is most dedicated studio, and this
Yeah.
is the studio make most significant and most consistent accessibility effort. We have
Mhm.
AgroCrab there for their future frequent updates to Peak, which is the following from Another Crab's Treasure.
Mm.
We have ID Software for Doom the Dark Ages and Heretic and Hexen Remaster. And then we have Rare with their ongoing updates of Sea of Thieves. We have Massive Entertainment for ongoing updates of Star Wars. And we have Clement. Huh? How do I say that word? Clemens?
Clemensstrasse?
Ah, yes. Dyslexia again.
Yeah,
With their
that's
art.
okay. It's not one that I'd said out loud before this moment.
With Art of Fauna following from Subworld's Asian board game collection and Elementary Minute.
I feel like my big pick for this has to be Aggro Crab. They've
Yeah.
been so good with their accessibility messaging this year, and I feel like any conversation around accessibility messaging wouldn't be complete without talking about Aggro Crab's work.
No.
They've really stood out to me this year.
It is AgroCrab and Landfall. Just we're going to shout out Landfall also in that they are also part of Peak. But I also think that one of the things I like with them is that all the content they make about Peak online is memes. Like their TikTok is just thousands of things of like memes. And also in their updates, every time they make like a patch note, they also make a TikTok about it. And that is also just jokes. But they also mention accessibility in the most jokingly natural way, which I love because I am so over. We look at accessibility as healthcare, where it needs to be sterile and you need to be careful. And oh no, do not make jokes with the disabled community because they're so weak. And then you have AgroCrab who just went like jokey joke, and like it's just part of them. It's so normalized. That I am just yes, please. This is fun. This makes it so that you guys will most likely reach out to somebody who do not look at themselves as disabled but still need accessibility and still go, hey, oh, that can actually help me. And I'm glad for that.
Yeah, so well put.
Yeah.
We're down to the last couple now, and this is another one where I want to read off the explanations because this is the MVP award for Unsung Hero.
Yeah.
And by its very nature, this is an award aimed at people who the industry doesn't... most people in the accessibility space aren't going to already know the good work they're doing.
Yep.
So I think this one, it's worth like talking a little bit about why they're nominated. We have Paul Parsons, who is the line producer at EA Sports behind the new accessibility features in FC26, who got them from concept to being in the game in less than a year. Very cool. Yep. Luke Hyuna, who is the accessibility designer with EA's accessibility team, who supported FC26, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Dead Space Remake, and many others. Holly Westcott, who is accessibility lead at Amazon Games, who I believe listens to this show.
Yes.
Has built out the publisher's accessibility team with a bunch of subject matter experts, creating the accessibility standards for all of their projects, and making sure that disabled voices are heard throughout development. I know some of the stuff that has been involved in like her work at Amazon. It has involved things like bringing Manycat Studios, who have a bunch of disabled people, to give really good feedback on stuff. They've been very, very... they've moved very fast in the last year or so at really pushing forward accessibility in Amazon, and absolutely superb work.
Yep.
We have Elizabeth White, the senior user researcher on the Bethesda user research team, bringing best practices to ZeniMax, Bethesda, and Xbox Game Studios, and making sure that disabled players' voices are included in their game's user research. Supported the release of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Doom the Dark Ages, many of the other titles that we have praised today.
Yeah.
Helping them write their marketing materials on accessibility so that players know what accessibility is going to be in these games. Great to see that being acknowledged as a discipline. And Tilley Tetica McNally, the Senior Director of Inclusive Design at Scopely, who has been leading a lot of their accessible and inclusive design stuff. has been in the industry for like 20 years, supporting QA teams, and basically has been a real solid pillar of accessibility design for a very long time. All of those are doing incredibly impressive work that a lot of people in the industry won't know are doing that great work.
Yep.
Whoever wins that award, pay attention to all of these people. They're all very, very good.
Yes, they're often the ones who are like pulling all the strings and doing all the good work that we can talk about. So I feel that it's really cool that they have their own
Yeah.
category, because without their incredible work, people like us wouldn't necessarily have anything to talk about. So
Yeah.
I think that is really cool.
And then, do
And
you
then-
want to talk about the last one?
Yeah, I wonder who we go to talk about here. It is the Advocacy Awards. And developer role on that, this is the award for somebody who is advocating by using their voice to make a difference across the wider industry. And what is that? Elizabeth Arabia Sivertsen? Wow, that's me!
And then Laura K. Dale, that's me!
Yeah!
Oh, look at us! The top two names there on that list, both there. Hell yeah!
Hell yeah! And then we had Jesse Illegally Cited Anderson, Anton Martinez, and Rodrigo Sanchez. Congratulations to all of you. I think this is so cool.
This is a really wonderful set of people to be nominated alongside. I really enjoy and respect the work that everyone on this list does.
Yes.
Obviously, look, if I can't win this, I'd be delighted if you did, because I get to be excited for my friend.
Yes.
But also, like, there's so many people in this list that I can point to and go, if you won, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm so excited for you.
Yes, it's well deserved.
Rodrigo Sanchez, one of my favorite IRL people in the video game industry. We've frequently met up for like accessibility meetups for drinks in Brighton. He helped me get involved in doing accessibility stuff for Life is Strange Double Exposure. He is delightful. He's wonderful. Everyone on this list is great. But also, look at us. We both got nominated for a thing. Look at us. We can be proud.
Even better, if I could continue being nominated and not winning, I am going to be like Leonardo DiCaprio of the accessibility world, and I am so here for it. Will we end up if I get like my 7 nominee without getting win? I'm going to have to do a cosplay of him or something.
I mean, look, I went, I think, 10 years between my first nomination for an award and having my first award on the shelf. I think it took 10 years.
Oh no, do I need to go 11 years before?
Yeah, you gotta go 11 years if you want to outdo me on that.
Yeah, and then I need to cosplay you.
Yeah, I think I got nominated for, I think I got nominated for the Women in Games Awards, maybe 2014, when I was working at Destructoid, so I think it was pretty bang on 10 years when I won like my first like physical award, which is the Women in Games one 2024. So if you can make it more than 10 years without winning one, you've outdone me.
Yeah, then I'm going to cosplay you, Laura. No, but jokes aside, like this is incredible people to be nominated next to, and for me as well, like these, I feel like I'm an ant among giants in the form of like I'm standing on shoulders. These are a lot of people who have formed the industry, and not only in our category, but in all categories. They have formed the industry. Like the work we do is to build up on each other, and we are only seeing the future because we can stand on the shoulders of these people come before us. So I am so honored to be nominated. So yeah.
And I'll say what I say anytime I get nominated for a thing, even if I don't end up winning it, which is, even if I don't win something like Best Journalism that I'm nominated for this year, being nominated still means I was considered in the top 5 pieces of journalism this year about accessibility in video games.
Yeah.
Being in the top 5 is still a pretty big honor. I will take award nominated anytime. It means I'm doing alright. I'm doing something.
So when you're listening to this, please go and vote. Do use your heart, vote whoever you want to win, not what everybody else says, but you think should win. I also am nominated to another award that has outside of Norway. You won't know it, but it is called Ulikprisen, aka in English that would be like the unequal prize, which is a prize that goes to somebody who has dedicated their work to showcasing inclusivity in the disabled community and pushing disability activism forward. And I am nominated together with two other wonderful people who has done a lot of great work here in Norway. Again, I do not feel like I'm worthy for that nomination when I see the two other people. But sadly no voting there, but I will go on an award show in like 2 weeks. So who knows? But it is cool because Norway, I feel sometimes, and I've talked about this before, is a bit behind when it comes to the work in gaming. Like gaming isn't as like, how can I tell it? We have a word called like living room clean, where it's like the word for is not as looked as something positive that other things are. And like it isn't as common to talk about as I would say it is in other countries, or looked at as an actual industry and a profession and stuff like that. So be able to get a disability organization, which is the Young Disabled People of Norway, who has nominated me for this, to see that they recognize how important gaming is and that gaming can be for everyone is just incredible. And I'm so happy for being nominated.
Yay!
Yeah. It is a hell of a week for us, Laura. It's going to be fun to see how this will go forward. This was supposed to be a short.
Yeah, and it didn't end up that way. This is the problem. Anytime we say it's going to be a short episode, we curse ourselves in that regard.
Yeah, but that's just what it is. We have too much good things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back in a couple of weeks and have another episode. We'll get to some of those other things we started this episode saying we were going to do today. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We hope you've enjoyed. Arevia, where can we find you on the internet?
Give it 2 seconds, Laura. My dog is barking. 2 seconds. I will be back.
No worries.
2 seconds. Okay, I think she stops, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, Laura, you can find me under Arevia everywhere. Lately, I have been doing a lot of travels and events. I have even gotten myself like a really cool t-shirt where it says ask me about accessibility, because I've been on all sort of events and talking to developers, talking to you guys, talking to people, and answering absolutely every single question I have about accessibility, so that if somebody comes over to me and asks a question about accessibility, I am there to help them, and it's been incredible. So you can find me under the name Arevia everywhere online. And Laura, where can I find you, and what have you been up to or will be up to lately?
You can find me at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere. The video I've got going up on Friday of this week is an episode of Accessibility, talking about the steps it would take for us to see accessibility tags on video game boxes, and the reasons I think that that's a thing we should push for, and the ways that we can overcome some of those hurdles to make that happen. Check that out. It should be up on Friday. And with that said, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We'll be back with another episode soon. Bye.
Bye.